If you've not played the Stanley Parable, I advise you to stop now and play it before watching further. This truly is a game to be experienced and discovered firsthand. I believe that really any details could count as a spoiler. The Stanley Parable is a 2013 award-winning exploration indie game developed by Galactic Cafe. The game opens with a narrator describing Stanley, his job, his office, and the peculiar day Stanley is having. A narrator exists to create structure, and in this case acts as a script enforcer, a voice of reason or judgment. The narrator's voice intrinsically urges the player to listen and obey through its crisp pronunciation, proper accent, and joyful tone. The narrator lives between the world of the story and the world of the viewer. We are to assume the narrator is trustworthy outside the media it is narrating and is always following the script. The narrator is not for the character but for the player, telling them what to do by saying what Stanley did. The player is not the character, nor is the player the character. However, they are both existing at the same time, fused, being instructed by the narrator as one. This opening scene of the Stanley Parable explains the essence of video games.
Orders came to him through a monitor on his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order.
From this scene, the player believes that Stanley is free from following orders, from being told by a computer to press buttons. Yet, the player goes right into doing just that. The narrative contradiction ending of the Stanley Parable claims that choices in video games are inherently neutral, that taking the wrong, unintended, and even form-breaking action within a video game is not distinct from the choices considered optimal. This is communicated through the player's choice of rejecting the narrator's authorial voice. This ending is one of 46 and can only be achieved by going against everything the narrator says.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left. This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well.
After Stanley continues into the right doorway rather than the instructed left, the narrator decides to try to change Stanley's reasoning. It suggests that instead of following the story for the narrator's sake, to follow it for her, for Stanley's personal story.
Fact is that the story has been about nothing but you all this time. There's someone you've been neglecting, Stanley. Someone you've forgotten about. Please, stop trying to make every decision by yourself. Now, I'm not asking for me, I'm asking for her.
Stanley is put in a room with a ringing phone placed on a small table in the center and is told the caller is his wife. The implications are clear. The phone is ringing, sitting prominently in the middle of the room with a stark swinging light bulb above. The player is to answer the phone.
That's her, Stanley. You need to be the one to do this, to reach out to her. If you can truly place your faith in another, then pick up the phone. As Stanley picked up the phone, a white light engulfed him, filling him not just with radiance, but with hope. Hope for a life reunited one... Wait. Oh, goodness. Stanley, did you just unplug the phone? No, that wasn't supposed to be a choice. How did you do that? You actually chose incorrectly? I didn't even know that was possible. Not picking up the phone is actually somehow an incorrect course of action. How is that even possible? None of these decisions were supposed to mean anything. I don't understand. How on earth are you making meaningful choices?
The narrator is then speaking to the real person, rather than the character that the player is acting as, and is begging them to play to the story. Usually games are focused on keeping the player and the character combined as one as to be the most immersive experience. This breaking of the fourth wall is extremely uncommon. By separating these two, it also separates the choices.
You may have noticed that this room has begun to deteriorate as a result of narrative contradiction. We're going to revisit a choice you made just a few minutes ago and see what the correct thing to do would have been. When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left. No! Why did you do that? Quickly, hurry back in the other direction. Perhaps we're not too late. Oh, it's ruined. I can't believe, after everything we talked about, that my story, you've destroyed my work. No, I have to. I have to shut the game down. Now look where we are. My entire game is destroyed. Oh, my story. If you'd just gone through the door on the left, you would have seen it. It would have been so perfect. I worked so hard on it.
The narrator claims this essay will argue, though, that the Stanley Parable is making commentary on this process. The choices that led to this ending are deemed incorrect. However, they are still choices that were scripted into the game. They are possible within the realm of the game, and therefore valid. The narrative contradiction ending of the Stanley Parable argues that there is no story to analyze if a player interferes with the game's wishes. Furthermore, there is no story to analyze if a player does not engage with the game at all, making no choices, as played out in the credits scene.
Stanley, please. I need you to make a choice. I need you to walk through the door.
The game or story is just as ruined if one actively chooses to go against it as it would be if the player never started the game at all. This ending brings you, the player, into the situation, rather than just between Stanley and the narrator. It talks about if how there were no player, Stanley would not do anything, and the narrator's story would go nowhere and would just be as ruined as it was when the narrative contradiction took over. Wrong choices are better than none at all. When one is playing a game, even if it is a game full of choice, such as the Stanley Parable, it is not true free will, it is just following the pre-planned script. This is the illusion of player agency. The choice you have in a video game is arguably no choice at all. There cannot be meaningful choices, as the narrator said. The argument is negated as I am writing this paper now. Indeed, finding meaning in these choices. Though the narrative contradiction ending is not the correct ending, it is a written ending nonetheless. It is possible and therefore valid and meaningful. At the very least, the events within the Stanley Parable are amusing. Even if the actions taken go against the game's correct script, they are still valid. This idea could be explored in many other games. One could attempt to live a normal life within a game surrounded by quests and killing. This would be considered an incorrect way of playing because the player is operating in the outer fringes of the main operations of the game, wherein bugs and game-breaking mechanics become normal. But a player could find meaning within this life they created with their own rules they assign. Player authorship can exist within a game even though the possible choices are scripted. Video games are an ever-growing medium, exploding with new ideas of experiences and mechanics. What sets video games apart from other artistic media such as film or literature is that they are interactive. There is an entire world of choice within games that does not exist within anything else. This allows for personal character creation in RPGs that goes further than just cosmetics, and one can create their own narrative through the actions they choose to take. It also provides a moral playground, a space with no real-world consequences. One can test different sides of the moral coin or different playstyles. Other media do not allow for this interactivity. Instead of reading through a book about a character that is not you, the player inserts themselves into the world and controls the character's every move. Often regarded as an escapist activity, one can be whoever and do whatever they want in any world they might find. The vast sea of games allows for these choices. When a player opens a game, they are facing a paradox, opening themselves to possibilities and otherworldly control, yet also willingly handing over their agency. To want to play a game is to want to be told which buttons to press and when to get a scripted result, just like Stanley's job. That is what a game is at its bare bones, an attempt to get from point A to point B, but adding extra rules and challenges that need not be there in the first place. The Stanley Parable pushes the boundaries of what a game could be and how it is to be played.